Hi, everybody. Welcome to Understanding the Needs of Students with 22q11.2 Deletion Syndrome in a Virtual Environment with Donna Cutler-Landsman, who you probably can see on your screen. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Lindsay Garcia. I am the Executive Director of the 22q Family Foundation. Been running the foundation now for over 3 years, and education is obviously our bread and butter. It's what we really focus on here at the foundation, as we want to be able to support you guys in any way we can. Donna has been our consultant since we started. We were lucky enough to inherit her from the previous Dempster Family Foundation, but she has been around the 22q community for a very long time. She's very knowledgeable, and she's an expert in this field. We've received a lot of questions pertaining to the new virtual learning that a lot of us are facing at this moment. We don't, it's ongoing. We don't know when it will end. And we had a lot of requests for people to share information with school professionals, teachers, staff, everyone that supports our children, just because our kids have such a unique learning style. So we thought it would make sense to put together a webinar for all of you that you can view and hopefully gain some insightful information about the 22q students. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Donna, and she's gonna go ahead and do her webinar, and then at the end, we'll be able to field some questions. So if you do have any questions, I'll be able to try to answer those as best as I can while she's speaking, and then we'll have some more time at the end. So welcome, Donna. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and thanks to all of you that are joining us today. I am so excited to pull together this webinar and very thankful for every staff member who has tuned in, or if you're watching this later, very happy to have you learn a little bit more about the 22q11 deletion and really what we can do as a community to support each other during this time. So first of all, I did want to start this with saying that I really have a very deep and mutual respect for staff members that are tuning in. I'm a former teacher myself. I was in the classroom for 36 years. And I have to admit, if this had hit me while I was actually teaching, I would probably be pulling my hair out, stressed out, trying to figure out how to deal with my own children, as well as learn platforms that are virtual. I would miss my classroom, try to understand how I'm going to be serving my students and making this all work. So I don't want to come across at all today as preaching to you or saying anything to you that would make you feel that I'm not appreciating what you're doing. I totally understand where all the staff members are coming from, and I am deeply respectful of everything that you guys are trying to pull together in this really difficult time. It is a new reality. I mean, we're all faced with this every day, and it is stressful. I think it's stressful both on the families and on schools scrambling to try to meet the needs. And I know everybody is really trying to meet the needs of the students with disabilities, as well as the children that are just your general education students. I know everybody's trying to juggle their family roles and how this can interfere with time to plan lessons and time to get back to your students. I wanted to also mention on the flip side of this, that this is an extremely stressful time for families that have children with the 22q11 deletion syndrome. This is a syndrome where many of these kids have complex medical needs. They have compromised immune systems, and many of them are coming in with heart issues and other lung issues that make this virus a very scary prospect to contract. So we are, I think, as a community, trying to come to grips with how is school really going to be for kids with this in the long term. And then I think also families are coming to the table with the added stress of having a child that really has increased needs around learning. I know that staff members that have worked with children with 22q realize that independence and self-sufficiency and the ability to plan and execute things is not a strength for this population. That most of the time children with 22q need a lot of hand-holding. They need a lot of re-explaining on concepts, and giving them an assignment and expecting them to work independently is not a strength for them. So this is a barrier to this type of learning that I'm going to talk to you about, and hopefully we can work together as the community and as the staff around the country, trying to come up with ideas of how to best serve this population. So students, like I just said, working independently is difficult. So if they're given a reading assignment or a math assignment or a worksheet, there is going to need to be an adult that's available to explain it and to interpret the directions. This is really a necessary piece. A lot of explanations are needed, and students are going to need to be stepped through these assignments. Additionally, kids with this syndrome tend to lose focus. They tire easily with basic activities and the typical curriculum. So attention deficit disorder is part of this syndrome, and having focused attention on any task for a long period of time can be especially difficult for this population, especially if they're not really sure what they're supposed to be doing. So as much as we can incorporate videos, talking books, active options, interactive computer learning where there's a staff member interacting directly with the student, those are better options than clicking through and giving these kids an assignment and expecting them to work through this independently, unless it's something that they've been trained to do. So in other words, if they've done lessons like this multiple times and they've practiced it and they know already what to do, that may work. But if you're trying to teach a brand new concept, this has got to be somehow facilitated with an adult helping. Now, realizing that parents are stepping into this role, but this is not something that's going to be sustainable in the long term for parents who are working or not able to understand the way that this needs to be taught, or frankly are just not able to be at the computer with their children. Maybe families have multiple kids, where there's a lot of kids on a lot of different assignments. So this is getting to be a situation that's really not sustainable for families in the long haul. So I wanted to talk really how to work with children with 22q successfully. And over many years of working with schools and dealing with the needs of this population, here are some suggestions that I have for you on how to approach lessons with this population. First of all, kids with this syndrome need repetition in order to master a topic. So certain basic skills need to have a repetitive approach. The spiral curriculum where you touch on a topic and then you come back to it in 2 weeks and 4 weeks is not as successful as delving deeper into a topic and having multiple opportunities for repetition to master a particular skill. Kids with 22q do very well in hands-on experiences or learning in real time in the real world. So anything that you can do to incorporate a project-based approach where there's hands-on learning and embedding the skill in a real-world experience and then supplementing that with repetition of the skill would be a good approach to have. So whatever you can do, kids are home, so relating their learning to what's happening in their homes with activities they can do around their home would be a helpful approach. They are going to need simplified step-by-step activities where things are really spelled out and things are, it's a step-by-step approach. that they can get active, direct adult support with. So either a video that they can watch where the teacher is explaining and demonstrating what they're supposed to do, or interface over the computer where they're trying to do the lesson and the teacher is actually interfacing with them one-on-one and stepping them through, or through a Zoom small group experience with other students where they are working through this lesson step by step. And then I think also it's important to have clear-cut goals and outcomes for the lesson. So what are they supposed to learn, and what is the goal of the lesson? So something like, at the end of this lesson, here is what I would like for you to take away from this. So clear-cut goals and outcomes from the lesson. So repetition, hands-on, related to real life, step-by-step directions, active, direct adult support, and clear-cut goals. I also want to rethink the priorities of how we are thinking about education for this population at this period of time that is so stressful. The goal, number one goal, I think, is to maintain family relationships and minimize the stress within families. So bombarding with a lot of assignments and a lot of pressure on grades and due dates. I know, some of the kids are in high school classes and so on, or middle school classes, but really we need to think about how the impact of asking kids to do some of these assignments where they're not independent and having all of that fall onto the family is really stressing families out. So we have a primary goal of minimizing the stress and maintaining the sanity and family relationships. We need to think in this population, one of the barriers, the long-term barriers to adult life is independent skill. So rethinking, maybe prioritizing more life skills activities and adaptive functional skills at this point in time might be a way to help bridge this period until the kids can get back into school. So independent skill focus. I think we're also rethinking the worksheets and kind of the activities. And again, I know that drill and practice is important. So we need to incorporate some of that, but we also need to figure out a way to make this project-based and hands-on activities. And then finally, I would really recommend we use the time to simplify basic academic skills. A lot of kids with 22q have not mastered some of those basic academic skills that they need for independence in adult life. So what I'm talking about there is money skills, skills about basic math facts, so memorizing and learning math facts, very basic things. Working on basic computational skills, maybe using a calculator, but understanding basic math. So rethinking those skills that you think these children need on their IEPs and focusing time on getting those skills mastered. The independent skills that can be targeted during this time would be things like cooking and embedding some math skills within that activity. Cleaning around the house, but it might be more complex than just cleaning. It could be skills that get to be more complicated than that, like ordering supplies for cleaning, or figuring out, comparing disinfectants, or how to thoroughly clean things. Organizing. Executive functioning and organization is not a skill that comes very easily for this population. So organizing, introducing apps that might help children with 22q organize. Maybe organizing their rooms, or organizing a system, putting together a system for keeping their assignments organized. So working on an organizing goal is a very helpful goal for this population. I know we in our family have started on Instacart. I don't own stock in Instacart, but we've ordered off of Instacart because I don't want to go grocery shopping during this time. So helping your 22q child get online with you and figuring out an efficient way to order. So one of the things you might start with is surveying what is needed in the pantry and what is needed in the kitchen and what are you going to be cooking for the week. Can you plan menus? Can you figure out what ingredients are needed? When you really stop and think about some of these skills that you are doing as adults, they are more complicated than you think. If you think about planning for meals for a week and trying to figure out ordering for the entire family, it could be surveying the members of the household as to what things they want to order for an Instacart order. And then you can make it more complicated. Let's say your budget for groceries is $150 per week. How much can you order and what is the cost of the items? So these can be layered into a lot of difficult concepts, but they would focus more on functional skills. And they would also, I think, assist with the family because these are things that the family is probably doing anyway in the context of how they're managing during this crisis. And it can be embedded into things that children with 22q may be a part of and may take some ownership on. Internet searches. You know, I'm ordering a lot online right now. I was looking on the internet yesterday for puzzles to do, and that might be something that a child would be interested in, going online and looking at a puzzle. Well, how many pieces in the puzzle? How much do you want to spend? Are there shipping charges? What's the budget? Do you like the topic on the puzzle? So those might be questions. It can be internet searches and comparison shopping that could go on to something like that. Using money. Many students with 22q have a lot of difficulty counting change, using money, understanding budgeting, understanding tax. So you can use this time to solidify money skills. And then a final category would be self-care and making sure that all those adaptive skills are honed in on. Oftentimes it's very rushed in the morning when the kids are trying to get dressed and off to school. Now we have a little bit more time to get dressed in the morning, that things can be done at a little leisurely pace. So we can use this time maybe to help the child with the syndrome understand self-care and things to be done in the morning and helping around the house with maintaining and taking care of their own supplies. Solidifying basic skills and targeting goals. There are many things that can be done, like phonics, math facts, coin identification, understanding the concept of time, which is elapsed time, predicting how long might it take you to complete a task and timing it. Those are skills that are often difficult in this population, so honing in on that. Having the lessons geared to nonfiction topics, so understanding the world around the child or young adult. So time to understand government, time to understand community, understand some history topics, understand some science topics, gardening now that spring and summer is upon us, understanding the world around them in a way that is a functional skill way. And then a final area that I think is also oftentimes a struggle is adding detail into any type of writing or any type of dialogue. So helping the child add in details to what they're trying to share. So working on extending the writing with more sentences and some extra details that they can embed into their writing. So these are all basic skills, I think, that can be targeted and maybe enhanced when you're planning lessons and planning tasks to do. I would think about focusing in on these types of lessons. So, going about this, and how can we make this creative and kind of change the delivery of this? So we need to think about engaging these kids in creative activities. So I have a couple different options that I've used with my own class that have been successful ways to approach curriculum. For example, if you're teaching money skills, one of the ways to do that is to set up a store at home. So if the staff at school can facilitate this a little bit with having items to purchase, putting prices on items, figuring out how much things would cost. If there's a cash register that the family has, maybe instituting that, or there are some online programs and apps that can kind of set up a cash register online, and set up a store to teach the money skills, which makes it not just counting change, but it makes it fun because they're actually being the store keeper, and they got a whole store. The kids love this, setting it up in the living room of the child and having them work toward mastering some math skills in that environment. My 5th grade students used to love designing a room redo. So this is an activity that would be more appropriate for an older child. So giving them a budget, having them think about redoing their room. They go and they search either in magazines or online for items that they might want to have. They have to figure their budget, how much items would cost. They would have to deduct those mathematically from their budgeted amount and come up with a room redo. And it was really fun. What we pulled together was a collage that they would pull as a final project, or a board that would show all the different items that they wanted to put into their room. And I actually gave them a pretty big budget because I wanted them to get a little crazy with what they were getting. So some of them put television sets in their rooms and things like that. So, items for bedspreads or artwork or special lava lamps or whatever they really wanted, pillows. But it was a lot of fun, and it embedded math within that context of something that was meaningful for them. Another thing that kids really enjoy is learning how to use PowerPoint. So doing a presentation that maybe they could pull together on a topic of their choice, using a PowerPoint platform, and then having them share that in a Zoom meeting with their classmates. So I did something like this with my little grandson, who is 7 years old, and he's really into coin collecting. So I showed him how to use PowerPoint. We did a Zoom video conference. He learned how to use the program and actually learned how to use it astronomically better than I know how to use it, because he embedded all kinds of animation into it and everything. But he pulled together a PowerPoint presentation on a passion that he has for coin collecting. So he pulled pictures in there and he shared that with his class. And now he actually has a follow-up PowerPoint number 2 for those students who are interested in doing some coin collecting and are going to bring coins to their virtual Zoom meeting, and they're going to talk about how to look into catalogs and figure out values of coins and figure out mint marks and those kinds of things. So it was a great way to work on presentation skills, speaking skills, interest skills, and research skills. And I think the PowerPoint platform was a really creative and fun way for him to disseminate that information. And it could be done like we're doing this today virtually, but the kids are pulling together their own presentation. There are also online programs like Alex and ABC Mouse, you know, that are interactive computer programs that are fun for kids to do. And the Alex program, if you're not familiar with that, is a math program that really hones in on a child's level of accomplishment, level of instruction, and works individually on skills with them. So these types of programs, there's a million of these online, but I would take a look at that as also another platform that maybe might be helpful for some distance learning for kids with the syndrome. Most kids with 22q do enjoy using computers, and that platform is a good platform for them. So, from the family's perspective, the kids with this syndrome really need targeted and direct instruction. So parents really can help, but I think that staff needs to understand that there's only so much time that these parents have to sit with the kids. And when there isn't an adult involved with the kids with this, you know, directly helping, the learning is really likely not happening in a way that's effective. So I think this has got to be a melding of how we're going to be delivering these services to the kids with 22q, because this has to be a direct targeted intervention. The other thing that I think schools need to understand is this population may very well not be able to attend school in the fall. Even though we're hopeful that this virus is going to be less of a threat and that things are going to be opening up, the kids with this, many children with 22q are very vulnerable to getting this virus and having a poorer outcome because of medical needs. So as we end the school year and look into the fall, I think districts are going to have to take some of the time over the summer to really try to figure out how to deliver effective education to this population, because this is not going to necessarily end this year with kids being able to come back to the classroom. I think that schools need to be actively involved both in just providing the materials, but also delivering the curriculum. It should encompass at least half of the child's day, so enough for them to be involved in school activity for at least half of the day. Therapy can be teletherapy. There are many districts around the country that have already started this, providing speech therapy, some OT therapy or PT therapy virtually. And this can be done and is being done successfully. And I think there has to be a way to think about maybe engaging in some home visits to these kids. It may be in the form of just one staff member coming into the home and working with the child. So I think some of this may be opened up to having one staff person come in, but obviously this depends on the child's health needs and whether or not the physicians will sign off on that. But I'm going to throw up a big red flag to the school community about having kids with 22q going back to a large school in the fall. This may not be feasible. I'm not one to make those decisions. I'm not a medical person, but speaking to a lot of families and knowing my knowledge about this community and working with a lot of individuals around the country, this is a concern across the board about this large population, a large populated school, and having children with 22q coming into that environment, unless we have great treatment or a vaccine that's developed. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen quite as soon as the beginning of next school year. So, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the school's responsibility. And the Department of Education, I know, has sent down some guidelines. You can access that at the Department of Education's website. They have set up guidelines, but basically what they're saying is that, schools do have a responsibility to provide the students with disabilities with an appropriate program that can be instituted with fidelity and can be, that is interactive and is meeting that child's needs and what they need based on their disability. And children with 22q are not independent learners. So we're going to have to figure out a way to work together with families. And each family is different, how much they can step in and take that responsibility. But kids with 22q need an adult delivering the instruction. So how that is going to occur, either virtually with a lot more face-to-face, or possibly with bringing in just one staff member, will have to be determined on a case-by-case basis. But something is going to need to change. I know that a lot of districts have really been stepping up recently and doing a lot more virtual education with their kids, and that there are a lot of barriers there. But I will tell you that there are platforms out there for staff to use that can be effective. And I will talk to you about some of those. One platform that I'm very familiar with, because I've been working with my little granddaughter, who's a kindergartner, on this platform. And I've been pretty amazed at how effective this has been for her, being in kindergarten, to be able to navigate through this particular platform. So this is a new situation. I think everybody needs to be patient, both the staff at school and the families. But the reality is, if you're sending home general ed curriculum, you have to be providing that special ed curriculum in a way that children with this syndrome can access the activities. It has to be tailored according to the IEP so that kids can access the instruction. And that it very well may involve some in-person assistance for things that you really need hands-on assistance with, if the family feels safe enough to allow somebody in the home. But if not, that can be done virtually. So, creative options. The IEP meetings, I have been on many of them. So these meetings can be held via Zoom. They are actually really fun to hold via Zoom, and it's worked out extremely well. The staff has posted IEPs that we're working on proactively and together. Everybody's face is there. Everybody has a chance to talk. There's chats. The Zoom technology works extremely well for IEP meetings. So I would encourage districts to really take a look at the Zoom platform or another platform and hold those IEP meetings, because I found them to be very successful, very creative and very accommodating. And we've come up with, I think, outstanding collaborative decision-making at those types of meetings. So definitely IEP meetings can be held. Teletherapy and video lessons are fine. They work really well. I can tutor virtually. It works great with high school kids. It's very easy to do. Compensatory special education services are something that districts can offer through the IEP team process for all of the time that's kind of been lost here because of the necessary procurement of video conferencing technology and getting things set up and getting lessons pulled together. So I'm encouraging districts to think about extended school year for children with 22q. They really need that consistent education over the summer. Even in the best of worlds, I'm a strong advocate for extended school year for this population. So now we're throwing in the COVID-19 and the fact that the kids have been out of school and out of their element for multiple weeks now. I think it's really important that we think about how can we enhance the education over the summer. The work needs to be modified according to the IEP in a way that these kids can really access it and learn. So think about small face-to-face meetings, think about small class sizes via the virtual programming. Schools can provide the technology necessary for distance learning. Now, I was this morning working with my little granddaughter on Seesaw. I don't know if you're familiar with that particular platform, but it's pretty nifty. And the teacher comes on, she has a video that she has prepared for the lesson of the day. There are songs that they're singing together. There are math lessons that are uploaded and directions to complete the lesson. And then there's a add a response where she's directed to a template where she can either record her answer or type in her answer or write in her answer. There's a camera embedded in this where she can take a picture of a drawing that she's made, and then they're all sent back to the teacher. So all of these assignments then are loaded into, they're loaded, the kindergartner can do this. She's able to maneuver through this pretty independently. And she clicks on her little check mark and it goes back to the teacher. And then she gets little videos back or recordings back from her teacher saying, great job on whatever she did. She enjoyed the writing. So there's this immediate feedback and this is uploaded. So Seesaw is just one example of a platform that really allows for this distance learning to occur in a step-by-step fashion. So her day looks like 7 different activities that she needs to complete for her day. And they're some music, some art, some math, some reading, and some writing lessons that I've seen come through this platform. So I think that one of the things I would strongly suggest really is to explore, and maybe people in the community have suggestions for platforms that they're using that provide this type of interface and the back and forth ability to upload things, to take photographs, to really become more involved in the day-to-day teaching. So it's a wonderful way to, enhance this virtual learning. The other thing that I think is important to think about too is how are we dealing with IEP timelines, which are currently still in effect, even though the COVID is happening. The Department of Education has not relaxed the timelines. So, you do still have timelines. Annual reviews can occur, and I strongly encourage to get these done now or over the summer so that there's not a huge backlog in the fall. 3-year evaluations or initial evaluations, these are problematic because a lot of these tests require face-to-face meetings, but parts of them can be done still without that. So you can do a review of the records. You can contact the teachers and do things like the BASC, which are, their surveys and some types of checklists and interviews with former teachers. If you had any former observations, you can compile behavioral data that you had throughout the school year. So some of the 3-year reeval parts can be completed. Some of the testing cannot be done virtually. And those maybe can be put off to later in the summer when hopefully or during the summer when hopefully a one-on-one interaction with these kids can occur, so that these evaluations can be completed and we can hit the ground running in the fall, rather than having all this testing waiting to happen at the beginning of next school year. The initiation of evaluations can occur for families that are considering an evaluation. Again, we're going to have to be very creative about how we go about these evaluations, but we can do some of this virtually and without face-to-face interaction. And we do realize that this is an ever-changing landscape. So a lot is changing by the day, and we're just going to have to work together as the 22q community and the districts around the country to support each other and to make this a positive and productive experience for both the families. And I have, respect for the staff to try to figure out how teachers are getting through all this in a way that works. So how do we do this? What I think is going to have to happen is we're going to need to create a support network. We're going to have to delineate the roles and figure out with any given family, what is the family willing to take on, and what is staff willing, how is staff willing to support this to come together for these kids. We have to understand who is responsible for delivering the curriculum. The kids cannot learn independently with this syndrome. So somebody is going to need to be responsible, and it can't be completely on the family. So we need to have staff responsible for actually delivering the curriculum. If the school doesn't have the staff, we might look at partnering out in the community to get other speech therapists or occupational physical therapists or other educators to provide that kind of support. I would really encourage the exploration of the technology platforms like Seesaw for online learning that we can promote as a community, ones that are interactive and engaging. And if school staff have been using things that they feel have worked well with this population, please share that information to the 22q Family Foundation so we can disseminate that around the country, and that other districts can use that technology as well. I think it's important to institute frequent communication with the family. How are things going? What's happening in your family this week? Is what I've sent home for your children to do, if how we're doing this interface and virtual learning, is it working? Or is it not working? And how is your child doing? And then I really strongly suggest that the districts, if you're tuning in here, realize that this may not be short term, and that we are really going to need to come together as a family, as a support network, as the adults in the lives of these kids who I know we all love and care about. How are we going to support them? Because they are going to need support with this, I think, more than just short term. They may need a longer term support. So I did want to say one, I put in this slide kind of at the last minute. I wanted to have a shout out to my high school seniors and kids who are getting ready to exit school, or maybe juniors as well. If you are a high school staff or you're a parent of a child at the high school, I want you to really take note of the adult services and think about community agencies and engaging those agencies well ahead of time if you feel your child or student is going to need adult waivers for delivering some transition programming. There is a concern around funding now and adult waiver programming because of this COVID. So we want to be very careful about exiting children out of the school system and the IDEA programming without solidifying their engagement and acceptance and funding in the adult agencies. So for example, if you're assuming that they're going to get help out of the vocational rehab department, it would be prudent to make sure that that agency is still funded and is meeting with all of the different levels of students that are, or young adults that they work with, or whether or not they're tightening their belt and only working with certain levels of adults. There is a concern that if there is not programming in the adult waiver community realm, that some of these kids with 22q, as they transition, if they graduate high school, they're going to be left without programming. So I would strongly recommend that transitioning and graduating high school is done in conjunction and very seamlessly with community agencies, with the mental focus of, are they funded? And will they continue to be funded given the mess we're in now with this COVID situation? I think everything is up for grabs here, and I would hate to have these children graduate at age 18 as thinking that they're going into the adult system, finding that their funding has been cut for regional centers or wherever they're planning to get their adult funding from. So I'm just suggesting we take a little special look here and special consideration be made to keeping these kids in the school system under IDEA and providing that transitional programming under the umbrella of education where there's more likely going to have consistent funding. So the 22q Family Foundation, who is supporting this webinar, is here to help. The mission of the foundation is to work in collaboration with families and school districts. We are a problem-solving organization. We work together. We are not an adversarial organization. We work to support. And we're very happy to come up with individual suggestions for a particular student. We do have many webinars at the Family Foundation website. And if you need targeted intervention, there is a tab under Education Station where you can apply for assistance. But we are here to support. There are many webinars online. I can click into this hot link here and pull up the foundation website here, which is what this looks like, 22qfamilyfoundation.org. And you will find a lot of webinars on here and information that can support you to better understand the needs of this population. And I will plug the sense that this foundation exists through generous donations. And if any of you are watching the webinar and finding that you have learned and better understand and appreciate the help that you can get through the foundation would very much appreciate any donations and to support them as well. So thank you very much. I hope that you found that this webinar was helpful to you. And I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay, who has been fielding questions. So Lindsay, take it away.
Thank you so much, Donna. I think it was a very insightful webinar, and I hope that everyone gained a lot of insight into our 22q students. We have a few questions. One, and of course, if you cannot answer this, feel free to just say so, and we can try to do some more research on our end. Someone was wondering if you have any recommendations for studying for a driving permit.
Okay, so obviously there is written material online. So that's basically the studying of the written test. I know that around the country, there are some agencies, and it depends on where you live, that really work with young adults with disabilities and will evaluate their readiness and their ability to be behind the wheel. So if you have any kind of fear or second thoughts about whether your child or student is really going to make a good driver, you might look for agencies that deal with adults or young adults with disabilities and driving instruction. And I would start there. And then obviously there's the rules of the road that you can study just as though you would study for other tests. I will say that many adults with the syndrome do drive. So but it varies. And it really varies on the ability of the young adult to be safe behind the wheel. So it's a possibility, certainly.
Okay. Do you have any tips on how to get more direct support? We talked a lot about this in the webinar, getting direct support from the schools if we're met with resistance.
I think you need to hold an IEP, because the schools really need to meet the kids where they are and deliver instruction in a way that's going to provide them a free and appropriate education, which is FAPE, which means in this syndrome, and I think parents will shout this from the rooftop, the kids are not independent. So they have to have an adult stepping them through the work as they go. Now, if they've practiced a skill enough, they may be able to do it independently eventually, but it's not something that is easily translatable to here's an assignment, go ahead and do it. I think the schools are going to need to look at some of these platforms for virtual learning that allow for videotaping or virtual learning with a staff member where the directions are given and it's given step by step. And there is a chance for the child to respond in real time or to upload a response. And it has to be a lot more hand-holding with this population. So I would, if you're a parent watching this and you're really worried about your child's ability to function in this kind of environment, you know, I always suggest the parents collect data of what's happening actually, or videotaping, or bringing this back to the school and requesting an IEP meeting. I know we can be creative in delivering service, and we just have to work together to do that.
Thank you, Donna. You touched on the fact that, you know, this may continue on in the fall, and that for our community in particular, you know, we are not doctors here at the 22q Family Foundation. However, you've had a lot of experience with our population. Someone is wondering, you know, if I'm not going to send my 22q child to school, what about their siblings? Is it risky for the sibling to bring it home to them? I was thinking the same thing. I do have a, you know, typical 8-year-old at home, and
Right. I would really relay that back to the doctors involved with the child. There's a wide range within this syndrome of immune compromise. You know, some are don't have much of a problem with that. Others do have a lot more problems. Some kids have lung involvement or heart involvement. You know, I think this is really an individualized question for your doctor. I don't know the environment that is going to be feasible, you know, for even siblings to go back and come back into school if they're going to get exposed. It's a hard question. Now, one of the things I talked to one of my best girlfriends, who's wonderful, she used to work at the CDC, and my son is going out and working and coming back home. So when he comes in the door, he takes his clothes off. They immediately go into the washing machine. The bottom of the shoes are sprayed with disinfectant. You know, hands are washed. He goes into the shower. I mean, I think there are things that you can do as a family if you're having people that are going out to school, for example, and coming back home into the environment, to really kind of, you know, clean them off and, you know, make them ready to enter the house again. So I think any medical worker, you know, that has a family is concerned with the same thing of bringing the virus back to their family. So I think, you know, following those guidelines and maybe talking to the medical professionals about how do they clean themselves off and come back in might make it easier for siblings to go to school and then, you know, enter back in the home in a way that's been, you know, sort of decontaminated and fresh and ready to go. So, you know, but again, I'm not a doctor, and I would totally, you know, ask the doctor who's treating the child with 22q what they're suggesting for this.
great. I know it's hard.
I mean, you know, yeah.
Another parent is wondering, she said, I'm pretty certain my school district is not doing anything to recoup lost time. They insinuated that there would be an IEP early fall and we would need to release them from that. Should I do something about that now? They may even be leaving for the summer already.
Yes, I would do something about it right now. As a parent, you can request an IEP be called. And if you've lost instruction time because of the COVID, if it was late getting modified assignments to your child, if there was no interaction with your child, if things have not been pulled together, you can ask for compensatory education. This is different than extended school year, where the schools always look at regression as a gatekeeping tool to kind of deny summer school oftentimes. This is compensatory. This is education for missed education. And it's very different than extended school year. So if you really feel that a lot of things have been lost because of this and your child has really suffered because of that, I would ask for an IEP meeting and express your frustration and ask for some programming over the summer. I've been very successful over many IEP meetings in the last month or so, getting districts to agree to extended school year and compensatory programming over the summer because of the COVID. So districts are doing this around the country for this population. And so I think, trying to be a little bit more proactive. I wouldn't wait till fall because you've lost all the summertime.
I agree. Another parent, I'm just going to sum it up, but their 8-year-old is at a middle of the year kindergarten level when it comes to academics. Does have some interest when doing things like ABC Mouse and working with their teachers. They also use Seesaw and upload videos, but not all schoolwork is getting finished. It ends in kicking, screaming, tantrums, yelling, and asthma attacks. I don't know what to do even to help him as they become overwhelmed and frustrated.
Okay, so I would do what you can do in that seesaw environment and that kind of thing. And then, like I said in the video, I would translate your teaching to around the house and helping you with chores and cooking together with you. And I would ask the school for some curriculum on that and see if they can't pull together some activities for you to do that you can do that is part of a family activity-based education. And if they're not responding to the screen for a long day like that, you really need to move it into the home and how can you teach given the situation. And make those activities more real life based. Focus in maybe on a topic, like maybe you're studying birds this week and you go out and you look in your backyard and you start identifying birds. And, you may have this curriculum kind of changed in the sense that you're going to have to look at the world around you and try to pick the things that you can realistically do within your environment and work that way. So, I think these videos, you can only do so much on a screen. And then I think it really needs to translate into functional real life skills. And frankly, kids with 22q have a hard time mastering those skills. They need direct instruction in this. So in a sense, this might be a perfect opportunity to focus in on those adaptive skills and really hit those strong. And then, the kids may really end up ahead with this, in a sense.
Another person is wondering recommendations for younger students pre-K through K who are avoidant of structured top-down tasks like arts and crafts, etc. Seems more anxious with online learning.
Yeah, and again, I think it's kind of the same theme, which is if they're not into this virtual platform, you're going to need to get off of the virtual platform into activities that you can do around the house. So setting up little experiments, or again, setting up a little store, or, experimenting, doing what sinks in the bathtub, what floats in the bathtub, what can you plant outside at your garden? How does a plant grow? Go out to grow a plant in your yard, put some I know one of the activities that came home was with bean seeds, and we put one in the window and watered it, and put one in the closet, and, you know, put it in a dark environment and compared. So getting off the screen and getting into a virtual kind of more real life environment and learning about the world around you. And that's what I would focus in on: the self-help skills, the family skills, learning about the world around you, reading, you know, reading books, doing puzzles, you know, working in that kind of a platform.
Great. And we have one final question. This person was asking, and I hope I'm understanding it correctly. Can you give some advice about starting the education process? How can I prepare my child for school life without stressors? My child is going to go for the first grade this fall. I'm not sure if this person maybe hasn't started school with their child. I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying with just, you know, some of those life skills type of things, like building a store, kind of, you know, playing school, as we all have been playing school for the past 2 months.
Well, you know, I think preparing for school, you know, this is a new reality, and, you know, the kids now have been off of school for quite a bit of time. This is a long break from that type of environment. I do feel that kids are missing it. They're missing their friends. They're missing the interaction. They're missing the fun time. And I would, if there are schools that have tuned in here and staff members, anything you can do to reconnect these kids to their classmates and to that fun interaction, I think that piece of school is being missed by these kids. And, you know, if there's a sibling, great, but if these kids are only children and they're the only child in the house, it's lonely. So setting up those virtual school platforms where they have their classmates and there's interaction, I think that's really an important piece of this. And I think preparing them for responsibility and responsible behavior and completing their homework and completing schoolwork is part of being a responsible student. And I think you can instill some of that in them too. You know, setting parameters, setting what the rules are. Mommy and daddy are working, or mommy's working, and, you know, and these are the things that we're doing, and we're preparing you. Here's your responsibility. And I think structure, I did another webinar for families. Some of you that didn't see that other one, it is recorded and posted for more directed at families of things that you can do. But definitely structure works well for this population. Having clear guidelines and clear expectations, I think, are important pieces there. But schedule is very, very important with us, and keeping a calendar, keeping a schedule, and having a plan for the day. That minimizes a lot of stress, and it really sets parameters of what time we're doing what and what the expectations are.
Well, thank you so much, Donna. I hope all of our attendees gained some insightful information today from you into the unique minds of our kids, our 22q students. And I think for all students, especially the community that we serve, we just need to, you know, really think about finding alternative approaches to education at home virtually. This is not something that I think is going to go away anytime soon. So again, thank you so much. I just want to mention that if you are not already following us and you are on Facebook, please follow us on Facebook. I try to post daily activities, Fitness Fridays, just different things to help give you guys some ideas. I did used to teach as well, so I know it's hard to kind of go into teacher mode, and a lot of times, you know, what we're being provided by our schools is just a bunch of worksheets. So trying to get creative too. I think, you know, for example, if a worksheet comes home one day for my son and it was talking about greater than and less than, you know, and just filling in the little alligator mouth, instead of doing that because he really just resists paper and pencil, we used, like, he has these baseball pennants, like those triangle shaped pennants, and we use those as the mouth. And then we use dominoes and put dominoes on either side of that, if you can visually see what I'm talking about, to kind of create the greater than less than sign. So just kind of thinking outside the box, because hands-on is really a priority to this community that we serve, and is very helpful. So I'm going to try my best to continue to add resources for you guys to Facebook and Instagram. If you're not already following us, you can. And also, if you need to see any of these webinars in their entirety, you can find us on YouTube. Just search for us at 22q Family Foundation. Again, thank you, Donna, so much for your time. And if you ever need to get a hold of us, you can go to our website, 22qfamilyfoundation.org. And you can also reach out to me. I'm the executive director, Lindsay, Lindsey, at 22qfamilyfoundation.org. Hope you guys have a great day. Hang in there. Summer will be here before we know it. And thank you again, Donna, for your time.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody. Stay healthy and stay safe. Take care.